Ever since Julia Banks first heard her story about being bullied, I have wanted her to name names, so the constituents of these bullies' electorates can know who they're voting for. I even asked her personally on Q&A once to do this, as I really strongly believe they should be held accountable. In Ms Banks' recent interview on 7:30, in my opinion, she implied that she wasn't going to name names because she believes there is no accountability in the government and is scared of the repercussions. Her story is sadly another item in an ever-growing list of serious scandals where no minister has been seriously investigated or held accountable. Why is there no justice for victims? Just, it seems, men behaving badly.
Well, Katie Allen, this is the allegation that the former Liberal MP, Julia Banks, has made, that she was touched inappropriately by a Cabinet Minister. She's not naming that Cabinet Minister. Firstly, do you believe Julia Banks?
Oh, look, I think that, absolutely. I think that Julia is, a political warrior, and I think she's a strong woman. And it is interesting, in a normal workplace, what you would do is you'd speak to your supervisor and they'd speak to their supervisor, and there'd be a process, or there'd be an independent process that would be private and confidential. And both of those things clearly were missing. It's a bit surprising that Julia respected Malcolm Turnbull as Prime Minister at the time and she didn't speak to him. So that is disappointing, but, good on her for speaking up now. And it's something that we need to draw a line in the sand, and we need to put people on notice that that sort of behaviour in any workplace, whether it's Parliament or right across Australia, is unacceptable, and it's just not on.
Can you understand, though, someone in that situation, or I suppose any woman, not immediately raising a complaint? These things often take some time.
Actually, I sat at a dinner table once, and the hostess was, basically the guy sitting next to her was an old friend, put his hand around and, grabbed her. And I was shocked because she didn't say anything. And then afterwards we were cleaning up and she burst into tears. And I thought, oh, she's obviously well behaved. I would have just, told him off then and there. But we were all shocked by that behaviour. So I think clearly what happens when these things happen, people are so taken aback and it's so shocking they just don't know what to do. So I do understand her response at the time. Yeah. But I think we need to call out this behaviour, and I think, people need to understand those things are just not okay.
They're not. This is still a Cabinet Minister in your government. Would you like to know who it is?
Well, this all happened before I was in Parliament, and I don't want to go backwards because I want to fix COVID. I want to fix climate change. I want to get on with.
I appreciate that.
As a woman, always having to talk about the women's issue, I want to be talking about the issues that are important, which include cultural issues.
But the question is about a Cabinet Minister who is still in Cabinet. Surely you'd want to know who that is if they're behaving like this.
Well, I think the thing about an independent process is it will allow, in a workplace environment, for the people in that workplace to have complaints made against them, and we will be able to see those sorts of behaviours if they are accumulating, not just perhaps a once-off, that if there's an accumulation of experiences, we will know that, and that is going to change the culture. Even just having these processes in place is going to change, and has already changed.
The process won't deal with this.
To be honest, that has already changed.
Simon Birmingham, the Finance Minister, has said this case won't go before that new independent body that's being established.
Well, I think the thing is that the independent body could keep going backwards, and I think we need to make sure that we're going forward. So we want to stop this behaviour. We want this behaviour because people want to see their leaders reflect themselves in their leaders, but their leaders are held to a higher account.
Santilla, let me ask you, do you think Julia Banks should be naming this Cabinet Minister if she's going to raise this issue, raise this allegation?
I mean, it depends on the legal risks that come with making these sorts of allegations, and I think this is what a lot of women have to consider when thinking about coming forward. I think what I'm curious about is the fact that there's still not a lot of accountability when it comes to these sorts of issues. I mean, Julia Banks is one of a long line of women that have come forward talking about the culture within federal politics and the fact that women still feel unsafe going into work and that these things are still happening, and the fact that that incident happened so brazenly, I mean, it didn't surprise me, but at the same time I was like, gosh, this is still happening. And I'd be curious to sort of wonder, like, at what point do we start to see change? Because, I mean, Katie talked about, regardless of whether this is happening in Canberra or the rest of the country, it is unacceptable, absolutely, but people model their behaviour from their leaders, right? And if people aren't being held accountable, how do you expect everyone else in the community to conduct themselves a certain way? And I think that accountability is a first step in this, but also ensuring that, there are a lot of young women that are interested in entering politics, certainly some that might be watching you tonight, and hearing these sorts of accounts might stop people from thinking thinking about pursuing a career in politics?
I stood up in the party room and said the very first thing the day after Brittany Higgins, we need to professionalise this place, and I need to see procedures and processes around that are going to support that process. And the Kate Jenkins review is welcomed, and so is the Stephanie Foster review, and those processes are being put in place as we speak. And I'd like to say I've contributed to that, and that is true. We want the young women of Australia to look and say, we want to be in the heart of democratic decision making. We want women and men to feel safe in that workplace, and we want to be proud of our leaders. I completely agree with you, Santilla.
Malarndirri, McCarthy, let me ask you about this, because I mean, Kieran's question goes to that issue of accountability. You know, when's someone going to be held accountable for something like this? I mean, Julia Banks did say, you know, she's not fearless as to why she hasn't named a name here. There are always consequences, she said, in these circumstances. Can you understand her position?
Well, I think it's reflective of many women who have experienced some kind of harassment or worse, assault, alleged rape. You wonder whether you come forward. You only have to look at the statistics across the country, David, for alleged victims who very rarely do get a conclusion that is satisfactory and just in those outcomes. So my concern here, I guess, more deeply, is that when nothing happens, it reinforces the view that your safety as a female at work, in the home, is not important. So when there is no accountability, I think it leaves Australian women despairing.